Hello and welcome to another video. I am Amoni Pinala, and this is one of my just like classes. Um, I have done a bunch of classes for Eve University covering the basics, and now I'm doing some classes that are a little further afield of the kinds of stuff that Eve University does. I'm covering topics that are um, interesting and fun, but not necessarily basics, but things that you might be interested in as people who are learning about EVE Online, and maybe you're playing, maybe you're just getting into it, whatever the case may be. These classes are for everyone, so let's get into it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about Alliance Tournament, or AT. Um, this is something that's really exciting because I am participating this year, and I'm very excited to be a part of my Alliance's AT team. And we'll get into what Alliance Tournament is now. So, what is Alliance Tournament? It is a 10 versus 10 arena dogfight. Um, it is Alliance members plus mercenaries going at it in a special arena, using point-based ship comps. This is like nano fights to the extreme. And an interesting thing about Alliance Tournament is that a big chunk of it is done on Thunderdome. So all the practices happen on Thunderdome. All the um, all the feeder matches happen on Thunderdome, and you might be wondering, wait, what's Thunderdome? I've never heard of Thunderdome. Well, EVE Online, most people are familiar with Tranquility. That's the server that most people play on. Some people may have heard of Serenity, which is a unique server specific to mainland China. Um, but then there's also Singularity, which is a test server. And then there is Thunderdome, and Thunderdome is a event specific it's an event-specific server that gets used for a bunch of different things. One of the big ones, or the big two, I should say, is Alliance Tournament and Anger Games. And one of these days, maybe I'll make a video on Anger Games. Anger Games and Alliance Tournament are very similar, but they are distinct enough that I could probably talk about Anger Games in a separate video rather than trying to give you like a 30-second rundown on what Anger Games is. Um, Once the feeder matches are over, it goes into the tournament proper. And I'll talk about what the feeders are versus the tournament proper. But the tournament proper is fought on Tranquility. So that's the main server that most players are playing on. Um, and the that means some interesting things about how people play in tournaments, and I'll get into that in a minute here. So the hoop. So uh, teams consist of 10 players uh, representing their alliance, facing off against another team representing their alliance. Um, and I say teams of 10, but that's a little misleading because teams will generally have much, much more than 10 people on the team. But when I say 10, I mean only 10 pilots are allowed on field during the match. You're also allowed to have mercenaries or just mercs. Mercenaries can be from any alliance, um, or maybe just not even from an alliance. Maybe they're in an NPC corp, right? And those folks can play and declare themselves as playing in this year's alliance tournament for a specific alliance. um, they have like a window of time where they can declare and then switch if they decide they don't like the alliance, that they don't want to play with the alliance that they were originally going to fly with. So they can switch, but then once they lock, but then there's a cutoff period where they lock themselves in. Um, and at the end of it all, there are two tiers of winners. So there is the top spot, right? Who um, who won the most matches and reached the top of the overall bracket for the whole shebang. And last year at Alliance Tournament 19, it was Fraternity. But then there's another tier of winners, and that's the folks who win ships. So, uh, folks can win special Alliance Tournament ships, which is really something special. These ships are like legendary items, right? If we're to compare it to other games, right? This is your gold tier items. These are the things that like you don't get till end game level play or end of the match level play. Um, these ships are extremely expensive in EVE Online. We're talking billions and billions and billions of ISK for even just a frigate-sized ship, because they are really strong and very rare. Once they blow up, that's it. It's never coming back. They're not likely to ever see that ship again. If you want another one, you're going to have to buy it at market prices, or you have to have one already. Like, so, um, some of the winners have included my beloved former corp, No Vacancies. They managed to win two frigates and two cruisers from last year's AT. So my hat's off to them, and I wish them all the best this year. Um, really cool people. Uh, so um, my current alliance, Brave, did not make it. We're going to watch some footage here so you can get an idea in a little bit. We're going to watch some footage of one of their matches so you can see what an alliance tournament looks like. But before I do that, I want to go into the what of it all, right? Because I get so excited that I kind of skip ahead. So the lore behind Alliance Tournament is that every year um, a different faction in New Eden sponsors this tournament, right? And that dictates a lot of little things like what kinds of ships you're allowed to fly in the tournament, what kinds of prizes are going to be available. Um, it's also going to determine, uh, there are all kinds of little special rules that go into playing with the lore and the changes to the rules, because the tournament would get boring if nothing ever changed about the tournament. Um, Eve players are a very fastidious bunch, right? They like to do all the number crunching. They like to solve every aspect of the game that they can, and that would happen in Alliance Tournament if it never changed, right? So to keep it fresh, to keep it um, fun, every year a new faction from New Eden is sponsoring the Alliance Tournament, and that means that little details are going to be different every year. Um, the actual match takes place in a unique arena. It's um, what is that, 250 kilometers? I want to say it's 250 by 250 by 250. It's a big square, right? And if you go outside of those boundaries, your ship blows up, which is kind of dramatic, kind of cool. But it does mean that you're caged in there, right? This is Peter Parker versus Bonesaw, right? In the first Spider-Man movie with uh, Tom McGuire, Tom McGuire, Toby Maguire. Gosh, I was mixing up the young guy, whatever his name is. I don't know. My brain ain't working so good when it comes to Hollywood references. But anyways, so there are boundaries. Also, in the corners of the arena, there are these micro jump units, and they work very similar to the micro jump units that we have in our everyday play in EVE Online. Right, you can go up to them, you activate them, point your ship in the direction that you want to go, and then after a few seconds of spooling up, boom, you are transported 100 kilometers away, right? So there's a lot of clutch plays that you can do with MJUs. It adds a little bit of maneuverability. These ships are already moving really fast, right? And so you've got ships that are moving 2,000 meters per second. Some are moving 4,000 meters per second, maybe even five. Um, but they're moving so fast. And then on top of that, you've got the MJUs. So you've got some real tools in your arsenal for positioning and getting around this large arena, which starts to feel small when you're moving that fast and MJUing your ass all over the tournament arena, right? The other aspect of this is points-based ship allocation. And what I mean by that is that every ship is assigned a point value. And you only get so many points before um, you have reached your maximum and you can't use any more ships. Now obviously you have 10 pilots, so you need 10 ships. So you've got to budget your points and come up with comps that are within that point limit. And like for this year, there are penalties for using more than one of the same ship. So, for example, here um, we've got the Draugr, which is the Triglavian Command Destroyer. It's 15 points. If I have two Draugrs, then that Draugr is now 1 point more expensive for both of them. So they're both going to be 16 points. Um, the uh, the Kikimora is 14. That's the T1 variant of the Draugr. That's 14 points. I can have three of those, and um, they'll be 16 points each, right? So there is some real like head scratching math going on there. There's also like there is an established meta, right? This has been going on. This is the 20th year of Alliance Tournament. So people have worked out a lot of this and come up with a meta. There are comps, there are usual suspect comps, right, that people expect. Uh, there are um, there are meta breaking comps, all kinds of things that are going to affect how you decide what ships you're going to fly in the tournament. And then there are the scrims, and the scrim is short for scrimmage, and these are the practices. Um, so, in my experience, It's usually going to be at least 2 practices every weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday, and you pair up with another team and you fight it out for a few hours, practicing a couple different comps. This is a chance to experiment with different comps, and this is a chance for all the pilots on the team to practice and get some more experience under their belts.
Hello everyone and welcome to this match, and we are about to see Brave Collective go up against White Flag here, two relatively good teams. This is a match that we normally expect to see much later on in the brackets, but we're getting treated to it day one. And we have Brave Collective here in a... I'm not entirely sure what that composition is, but what have White Flag brought here for us, Wingnut?
They brought one of my favorite comps to shout out, because they brought boom headshot. I love it so much. They've got 4 ships all with artillery, and all it takes is one lucky volley and a ship gets obliterated. With Brave kind of bringing, I don't know, armor, I guess is the word. Tiny little bits of control with the RB and the Celestis, but I really feel like it's not going to do much against this comp. Match underway.
It looks like a slower version of the Pseudodad setup, and that Nurgle is taking a pounding, but his ADC has been clicked. He's going to probably live through that. He just needs to get a bit of transversal and be able to survive. And the rest of the Brave comp here is pushing in, so it looks like they want to brawl. They need to be utilizing those cruisers to lock some things down. Those Org Navies are going to be critical here, and it looks like White Flag have noticed that, pounding DPS right back into Brackus there. What do you think they should be focusing on tackling down here from the White Flag team?
Honestly, I don't know, because it's very much going to be much of a game of catch something. I don't really care what it is to begin with, but catch something first, and then decide what to do from that point onwards, because at the moment they kind of need to go do that. Because otherwise they're just going to be kind of shot to hell. To be fair, though, their Org Navies, their battle cruisers, pretty tanky stuff. So is the Guardian. And their support wing, the Nurgle and Vengeance, pretty tanky as well. I think the weak spots here might be the ones that get obliterated, is the RB and the Celestis. T1 resists, and a lot of volley from these battle cruisers could really remove them. But that being said, the Vengeance is being shot rather hard right now.
Yeah, both of these frigates are doing a good job, though. They're staying behind the front line of those Org Navies. They're making sure that they have the ability to pull back into the Guardian whenever they start getting shot. And also that Crucifier is taking a ton of damage now, finally. The Pseudodad nature of this setup just working really in their favor. The Crucifier is going to slowly get a bit more, getting his transversal up, reducing the amount of DPS that can be applied. But that was a great little swap there, keeping White Flag on their toes. It's going to be a positional game. All it needs is for one team to mess up. All it needs is one of these frigates to not have transversal for long enough, or one of these battle cruisers from White Flag to get caught, and things will turn instantly.
Yep, and one of the great parts around as well, Tin Baron is going to do some amazing work here trying to keep his team alive, especially because the Crucifier and the Maulus, not much buffer to play with there. You really got to be on the ball with that. And at the moment, he's doing well. The Crucifier is holding. He drops into 30%. Oh, he drops into armor. Some damage coming in. The Vengeance now going into low armor as well. He might just go. Oh, where's the rep?
That looks like... There we go, that's a Vengeance.
That did not come. No, that's not good. Hopefully they get the Crucifier in trade, but
the Crucifier MJD'd. The Crucifier MJD'd away from the DPS. Amazing little play there from Monkey Onlin, enough to keep him alive for just a little bit longer in this game. And meanwhile, they've only got one frigate now, the Nurgle, and he just gets shot.
Why'd you say that? Why'd you say that? Why'd you say they've got a frigate? They heard you. Oh, God. And that's the power of artillery, ladies and gentlemen. Boom, headshot, 2 ships gone. Took them a little while to get to it. That Crucifier is still alive, and now the only thing is now it's pretty chunky stuff, but I think the RB Celestis might potentially still be the right call. But what do I know? These guys are doing way better than I can say. Absolution, okay.
Yeah, it's not close to game over yet, but now it's going to be really, really difficult. Like I said, it's down to just these 2 Org Navy issues. It's the only things that can potentially land on one of those Sleipnirs and lock them down. And they need to do that at this point. They need to take some of this long-range DPS off the field, or they're not going to survive. Look at Dujek now in about half HP. There's probably a bit of bait tank in there. There's no reason to rep him up until he gets relatively low. Although Ali Aris is also taking DPS. Look at that. It doesn't look like they're quite on top of her yet, but they are getting close, and that is going to be terrifying. They're just pulling around the back line and without no frigates to threaten it. Oh, no.
The point as well, the sheer amount of ECM drones currently on the Absolution of Dujek. I'm seeing at least 3, maybe 4 flights of Hornets on him. I've lived that hell. Dujek, I feel your pain through and through. The Guardian goes pop, and at this point, they're going to get picked apart really aggressively. They haven't caught anything. They're being kited. unless they pull a miracle out of their hat, unfortunately, I think this is going to go only one direction.
Yeah, all the rep bots just left on Xandar, who was taking, some DPS, I guess. Not swapped over to Aliaris quick enough, and that alone just let her die, unfortunately. Great logistics pilot, but just not quite able to run away from the sheer levels of long-range DPS that Hoodie Mafia and the rest of the White Flag gang have brought to the grid here.
I'm trying to think if there's a way around this for this team. They're not really fast enough to catch anything, and they're not really being able to kill anything either because they're being just kited the entire way through. Maybe an MJD play could maybe adjust this board a bit, but I feel like this was going to kind of go the same way, at least on Warpin.
If Dread Pirate Roberts could intercept on the Sleipnir of Hoodie Mafia, maybe, but he would have had to start moving in that direction a good while ago. They are going to eventually catch the Hurricane Fleet issue of Grunt Kado here, it looks like, but it's not going to be enough now at this point. They're just not. They don't have enough DPS left on the grid to start burning through all this EHP, especially as the Arbitrator and the Celestis get taken off the grid.
Yeah, even if they had the DPS, unfortunately, it's just going to be like a losing race. The Osprey will keep repping as hard as possible to keep the Hurricane Fleet up just for long enough. Whereas their team has lost their logic. All they can do is basically just rely on the EHP. And as you see by the Arbitrator, they can't.
Yeah, we were both serenaded by the lamentations of Fearviner in the moments leading up to this match. We can only hope that he has survived watching this with his sanity intact, as Brave now just gets slowly picked apart here.
The trick is to never be sane to begin with. But they've gotten some damage on the Osprey, but unfortunately he is also a billion, trillion miles away from every single target. This team, initially the White Flag team was sticking together and kind of moving as a group, but now at this point they've scattered themselves a little bit because it doesn't really matter anymore. They can kind of move into different spots and sit where they want to sit. There's really nothing they can do about it.
Yeah, and plus they're flying a max threat team that doesn't have the maximum amount of threats. I've never been a fan of the mixing of those two archetypes. If you're bringing the maximum amount of medium guns, you want to just focus on that strength and use it to crush through. The fact that they couldn't break a Crucifier, a Tech 1 E-War frigate, with a composition whose main advantage is the ability to be able to do that and then brawl, which is the main differentiator between it and Flykiller, it just says a lot about the comp's construction here, unfortunately.
Exactly. There's should be a lot of medium turrets that can destroy basically any small ship. And the fact that they couldn't get the Crucifier, the Maulus, a Hyena, or the Jack, they couldn't really break any of these small scale stuff and just kind of got controlled, kited, and killed. It is, man, I just hate to see it. But, there are chances perhaps a team like this could definitely pull it back in the losers bracket. Brave has got some good piloting in the past.
I also suspect that they didn't have a target painter. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't looking for it throughout the match, but just one TP probably would have been enough to tip them over the edge when trying to shoot that Crucifier too.
And a quick note as well is that whenever you see Boom Headshot, there is almost always without fail a Hyena in the comp. And sure enough, White Flag bought it. And Hyena is basically the perfect ship to bring into Boom Headshot because it both slows them and blooms their sig. It basically makes any ship just dead meat. So very good, pretty much the standard pick there, but it's still a very good pick to bring and knowing how to use your comp.
Yeah, and I think the Prophecy Navy issue is going to be one of the sneaky overpicked ships of the tournament. It's the first tournament where it's been legal to pick it. Obviously, last year they didn't exist, and oh, sorry, no,
makes them illegal.
They had just existed, but they were exempted from being picked in the tournament because we weren't sure about how to balance them. And we're just going to see this new section. The Merm Navy issue already has been picked a ton in feeders, and I expect we'll see that continue. But the Prophecy Navy issue is just so powerful. It has all of the drone bay for utility, which is key in these tournament matches, and then it does 500, 600, even 700 DPS with its turrets.
It's good to see as well the old dogs of Alliance Tournament pedigree. There's Sleipnir being the old king of Flykiller, being the old king of Minmatar Rush. There may be some new dogs in the arena with the Navy battlecruisers, but I tell you right now, the Sleipnir does not care.
Absolutely. It is gone through peaks and troughs, as all ships do. But whenever we see Minmatar Rush, a Sleipnir is the key part of it. It moves fast and it hits hard, and what more could you ask for in a ship? Anyway, exactly with that torment over, let's hand it back to the studio.
folks take this very seriously, right? This is very much like esports. This is very much like any other competitive thing. You've got people at a desk doing analysis of the matches before and after, hypothesizing what they expect, and then coming back to it after and sort of, breaking down what they thought afterwards. It's also a chance to hang out with friends, right? Like, you fly with these people every fucking weekend and you get to know them really, you build a certain level of camaraderie with them, right? And then, of course, there's the prizes. Like, I can't understate how cool it is to win prizes that are very unique, right? Um, and and really speak to, your level of achievement. If your team wins prizes, you have really achieved something from the tournament. Um, so, it's just it really is something. Um, what sucks about Alliance Tournament? Well, scrims start like 3.5 months before the tournament actually takes place, or before the feeders begin. You're not going to have a free weekend, right? Like, a big chunk of, if you're the kind of person who only gets a few hours to play video games on a given day, your scrim is going to take up all that time, because we're talking 2 to 4 hours of scrim, of practice, right, on Saturday and Sunday, and that's it. Like, a lot of people don't have time for anything else on the weekend. It's just scrim. And it goes for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then those weeks become months until finally you reach the feeders, and then and then it's, game face on, let's fuck them up, right? There is a entrance fee to participate. This year it's 4,000 plex. And if you don't make it to the level where you're winning ships, that's 4,000 plex that you're never getting back, right? And folks have told me time and again that 4,000 plex is really not that big of a deal for this kind of thing. Okay, I can accept that 4,000 plex is not that big of a deal for a team of 20-some players, sponsored by their alliance, right? Like, I get it, okay. But as an individual, 4,000 plex is a lot, right? Like, that goes a ways. 4,000 plex is not a small number of plex. So, it's something, right? Not the end of the world if you lose it, but dang, it sure would be nice to win, right? Sure would be nice to make that back. Another thing is just that the matchups in the feeders, right? So I probably should explain the feeders. I don't think I did that really very well. So there are too many teams to realistically have them all do the Alliance Tournament in the same way that Alliance Tournament is done. Like, it is just, there are too many. So what they do is they have the feeders. And the feeders are matches against all the alliances, except for the top 4 from the previous year. So, like, for example, I mentioned that Fraternity got the top spot, won the top spot last year. The feeders basically are how everybody else qualifies to participate in the Alliance tournament proper. And the matchups that you have in the feeders, in these feeder matches, can really be hit or miss. you might be going up against somebody who is really, really good on your first feeder match. And, like, it can be a death spiral if you lose against that first team. Your morale might go down, folks might feel really defeated already, and it can be really hard to claw your way back from a harsh defeat in the feeders. And then if you don't do well in the feeders, you get eliminated. So you don't actually even make it to the Alliance tournament proper. But those who do make it then move from Thunderdome over to Tranquility, and then you face off in Tranquility. Now, another thing I didn't mention yet is that in Thunderdome, you get max skills. You create your character to sort of be like it has to have the same name as your character on Tranquility, right? But then one of the big differences is that your character is max skill, right? So your character on Thunderdome can fly every ship in the game, has every skill maxed to 5, right? It's something like 516,000 skill points or something like that. It's a lot. But then when you get over to Tranquility, now you're playing with your character who is, anywhere from, 10 million SP to, 200 million SP, depending on how long you've been playing the game, right? And so that's going to change some things, right? And so that even though your character on Thunderdome has max skills on everything, and you can fly whatever you want, realistically, at some point, you're going to want to transition into, flying the things that you can fly on Tranquility, because you want to make sure that you have experience flying the ships that you're going to fly when your team, hopefully, makes it to the tournament, right? And then there is the fact that if you pick the wrong comp, you could very easily lose the match just because you picked the wrong comp, right? If you pick team captains pick the comp that they're going to fly in a match based on the bans that are submitted in advance. So every team gets to choose their bans in advance. They get to ban certain ships, and based on those bans, you can make some educated guesses based on the meta of the tournament, right? What kind of comp they're planning to fly. If you guess wrong, you're genuinely fucked, because they might be flying a hard counter to what you're flying, and it is a shit experience to go against a team flying a hard counter to your comp. AT is a metric fuck ton of fun. It's an incredible opportunity for players to duke it out against each other in a unique arena that has rules you're not going to find anywhere else in the game. It's a chance to become a better pilot, right? If you practice every fucking weekend and you're doing it for 2 to 4 hours every weekend, twice a weekend for months, you are going to become a better pilot. It is a chance to be a part of EVE history, right? So all the footage from Alliance Tournament is recorded. All the matches are recorded, and that becomes a part of the history of EVE Online. So even if you don't, win top spot, your name is still a part of the record if you participate in the Alliance Tournament. And of course, the prizes. The prizes are cool and exciting, and definitely worth bragging about, right? So, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like. Be sure to subscribe so you can keep up to date with the videos that I'm making. And be sure to share this with folks who are asking, what the fuck is Alliance Tournament, right? I wish you all the best. Fly dangerously, my friends.